Two detectives assigned to our intelligence section were driving down the street here, and they saw a young man with a firearm, or what looked like a firearm, in his hand. They identified themselves as police officers to this young man. The young man took off on foot with the gun in his hand, and the foot chase was probably a good 150 plus yards. It rounded the corner here. The young man never dropped what appeared to be a firearm, and our police officers, one of our two police officers, discharged his firearm at the young man, striking him non-fatally. His gunshot wounds are non-fatal. He will survive from his injuries. But we know this, and you know, this kind of sounds like a police-involved shooting we had not too long ago inside of a convenience store. Two police officers make an observation of a person with what looks like to be a gun in his hand. Now, as it turns out, this is a replica semi-automatic pistol. It's a replica semi-automatic pistol, and I looked at it myself today. I stood right over top of it. I put my own eyes on it. It's an absolute identical replica semi-automatic pistol. Those police officers had no way of knowing that it was not, in fact, an actual firearm. It looks like a firearm. The young man came out of his house, we know so far. His mom approached some police officers here, and she made it an admission to our police officers that she knew that her son left their home with what she described as a BB gun in his hand. So we have from the mom to several of our police officers that the mom knew that her young son, a 13-year-old young man, left their home with what the mom describes as a BB gun in his hand. When our police officers see that young man with what looks like to be a gun in his hand, they identify themselves as police officers. They give chase. It's exactly what our community expects police officers to do when they see someone with a firearm. You go back 24, 48 hours in Baltimore, the last 24, 48 hours, we've had a significant spate of gun violence and homicides and non-fatal shootings in our city. So our police officers are doing exactly what we asked them to do. I'll take this moment and remind everyone that our gun arrests so far in 2016 are up an astounding 60%. So our police officers are out here and they're identifying people illegally carrying guns in our community. It's a 13-year-old young man. That's not lost on me whatsoever. You know, why this young man chose to leave his home with a replica semi-automatic pistol in his hand, I don't know. Why this young man chose to flee on foot when he was approached by two Baltimore police officers, I don't know. Why that young man chose not to drop the gun and comply with the officer's demands to stop, I don't know that either. Our CERT team, our Special Investigation Response Team, is out here. You know, we take these investigations very, very seriously in Baltimore. It's the most important investigation we do, is to investigate police actions in any police-involved shooting. That's all I have at the time. I can take a couple questions, but I don't know much more than that.
Commissioner, can you clarify? You said replica, mom said BB gun. Is this a non-firing device, whatever it is?
Well, it's a dead-on ringer for a Beretta 92 FS semi-automatic pistol.
Visually, but this is not something that he could have shot someone. I just want to understand what we're.
Well, if it's a BB gun, a projectile can be fired from a BB gun. But listen, and we see this all the time. We see people who arm themselves with replica handguns for the purpose of committing crimes with that replica handgun. It happens all the time in Baltimore. It happens elsewhere as well. You know, again, I can't speak to what was going through this young man's mind. I've got two 13-year-old twins at home, so I'm, you know, trying to imagine my two 13-year-olds at home leaving my house with a replica semi-automatic pistol in their hand. I can't wrap my head around that. I know that the mom, at least based on what the mom told police officers here, I know that the mom knew that her son left their house with a replica semi-automatic pistol in his hand. I can't wrap my head around that right now. But our investigation is going to look into all those things, and hopefully we'll get to the bottom of it. I'm certainly glad this young man is going to survive, or it appears that he'll survive from his injuries. No police officer in Baltimore wants to shoot a 13-year-old, but police officers here and elsewhere are charged by us, by our community, with going after bad guys with guns. We can't allow someone to walk down the street in broad daylight anywhere in Baltimore with what looks like to be a semi-automatic pistol in his hand.
Was the mother arrested?
Was the mother arrested? No, the mother's being questioned, Kevin, at headquarters right now.
Shouldn't, or maybe you can explain to me, isn't there a rule for engagement as far as, aren't they supposed to have their lives feeling that their lives are in danger, or the lives of other citizens? Those, if the young man was running away and not aiming, returning to point the weapon at them.
Well, I don't know that didn't occur. You can see that this
that's my
chase,
question. Did you think that occurred?
The investigation will reveal that. I've got no reason to believe that these officers acted inappropriately whatsoever at this moment. They got out of their car and they engaged a person who had what looked like to be a gun in his hand. I mean, come on. That's what we're supposed to do. That's what cops do. So when he ran, and the foot chase was a good, 150 or so yards, he rounded a corner, kept running, had every opportunity to drop the gun. He had every opportunity to stop, put his hands in the air, comply with the instructions of the police officers. Listen, I don't know what's going through a 13-year-old's mind. I don't know why he chose to put a gun in his hand and leave his house. I wish he didn't. I'm sure his mom wishes he didn't. But I know the Baltimore Police Department is tasked with identifying people who pose a threat to this community. And I'll say this to our entire city. Anybody walking down the street with a real gun or a replica handgun in his or her hands poses a public, please don't put any words in my mouth, poses a public safety threat to our community. Okay?
Do you know where he was shot, the young boy? Where on the body?
I think in his lower extremities.
How many times?
I'm not sure.
And Commissioner, you said you had a chance to look at that gun?
I stood right over top of it.
Can you show us?
And I've been a police officer for 25 years, and there's no way on this earth that I could tell you from looking at that gun that it wasn't real. It is a dead-on ringer, semi-automatic pistol that resembles a Beretta handgun.
Do you know how many shots were fired?
By the police officers?
Yeah.
No, I do not.
Today is an anniversary. Can you talk about that? I'm sure it's not lost on you.
No, it's not, Kevin. And listen, today's an important day. I just came from an event in West Baltimore. I was earlier today over at the dedication of the senior center that was burned down just a year ago today. But the job of police officers here and elsewhere, it goes on. We police officers don't take days off. We're constantly tasked with responding to the concerns of the community. Public safety never takes a day off, but it's not lost on me what April 27th means to this city and what it means to this police department, what it means to me personally. So I wish I wasn't here describing to you all what appears to be a very unusual circumstance of a 13-year-old young man making a decision to leave his home with a replica gun in his hand. I can't explain that to you, and I'm not sure I'll ever be able to fully explain human behavior to anyone. But he made that decision. His mom, again, appeared to absolutely know that her son left the house with what she describes as a BB gun in his hand. I don't know what was going on. I don't know what prompted that young man to do that. I wish he didn't do it. And I wish I wasn't standing here describing a 13-year-old young man being shot by police officers.
That's what I think you said. Were these marked units? Uniform marked?
These are intelligence detectives. They're
So they were
plainclothes, and they drive an unmarked police car.
Did they have police vest? The police black vest or no?
I can't fully answer that right now, but that's going to be something that when we know the answer to that, we'll answer like we normally do. When we have a follow-up press conference like we normally do, because transparency is so important to our community. That replica firearm will be at a table right in front of me for you guys to see.
And there were two officers, but only one shot. Is that correct?
Yeah, two Banner gave chase, and one of those two discharged his firearm.
We talked to some folks in the area who described a very intense encounter with who they believe to be the mother of the young man who was shot. They believe that she was arrested. You said she was taken in for questioning. Was that a tense situation? Was she detained, arrested?
I can't imagine. Listen, if I walked outside of my house and saw the police interacting with my 13-year-old twins, I'm sure my emotions would be running high. And then if I were to find out that one of my sons suffered a gunshot wound, my emotions would be running high. So I can't speak to the exact nature of that interaction between police officers and this mom, and my heart goes out to her. But she is not under arrest. and she is being interviewed at police headquarters right now.
Someone else who said he was a witness said that he was already on the ground when it was shot. Is there any that the kid who was running was laying down when he was shot? Is there any?
So we have a really sophisticated team of detectives and crime scene investigators, and they'll be able to absolutely determine with certainty the bullet trajectory, how close the police officers were, and a number of other things that I just can't answer right now. But I promise you that our Special Investigation Response Team is comprised of top-notch, experienced detectives who realize the importance of their investigative responsibility. Again, investigating police-involved shootings is a sacred obligation of this police department, and we're gonna get it right, and then we're gonna communicate that back to our community.
I apologize if you've covered this already, but there were verbal commands given before any shots were fired?
And that'll all be part of the investigation. So, what we know now with certainty is that a young man was observed with a semi-automatic pistol in his hand. Our police officers approached that young man, and the young man decided, for whatever reason, he's a 13-year-old kid. I don't know why he did it, but he decided to do two things. He decided to run, and not only did he decide to run, he decided not to drop that gun. I can't tell you why he made those decisions, and the foot chase rounded this corner over here, and then it ended up resulting in a police-involved shooting, non-fatal wounds to the young man. And my thoughts and prayers are with him. My thoughts and prayers are with his family. My thoughts and prayers are with the police officers who are tasked to interact with people in very volatile, dangerous situations, and seeing somebody with what looks like to be a gun in his hand, that's something that most humans don't ever experience in their lifetime, and it's something police officers are trained to handle. And these police officers made an observation, and that observation compelled them, by virtue of their duty as police officers, to investigate what they saw further, and that's just what they did.
They identified themselves, you said, right? Identified themselves as police before they actually engaged.
Yeah, I'll be able to speak with greater certainty when we get a little more details of the investigation. So, anything else?
Did the officers refuse to give a statement? What is the process now for the office to get statements from the officers?
So this is as you may or may not know, I'm not sure if you do or not, but this is a criminal investigation. Anytime a police officer discharges his or her firearm at another person, whether it strikes the person or not, it always starts as a criminal investigation, and we work in close partnership with our state's attorney's office. So those police officers are afforded rights that are granted to any citizen who is the subject of a criminal investigation. And once that criminal investigation concludes, then there's a administrative process. Again, I'm convinced that our Special Investigation Response Team is up to is postured to investigate this very thoroughly and objectively. And as soon as we know more, I'm sure we'll probably have a follow-up press conference tomorrow at the headquarters of Baltimore. Thank you.